As for today, I move that this should be declared a national holiday because Mel Kiper has a mock draft available. To me, those should be celebrated. And he has Alabama quarterback Bryce Young going number 1 overall, not to the Bears. He has the Texans trading up to 1 and taking Young. Mel then has Chicago trading down again from number 2 to 4, where the Colts come up and take Ohio State's C.J. Stroud. And then at number 5, another trade, Carolina moving up 4 spots from 9 to 5 to take Kentucky's Will Levis. So those are the 3 big quarterbacks in this draft. There's a 4th who we expect to go high, and there you see him on your board at number 9, Anthony Richardson from Florida. This is Mel's top 10 in his most recent mock draft, which is available today, 2.0. You see the quarterbacks on there. You see the Bears getting one of the 2 big defensive stars in this draft, Jalen Carter from Georgia. Those are the numbers. So let's talk about it. Here he is, Mel Kiper Jr. So, Mel, let's talk about it there. Bryce Young going at number 1, C.J. Stroud at 2. I know what a big fan you are of Will Levis. That's really where all of the intrigue is in this draft, is in which order those guys go. Why Bryce Young number 1?
Well, I think you look at a consensus you try to build when you talk to your friends in the National Football League, Greeny, when you do these mocks. And Bryce Young's size is a concern, no question about it. That weight, what will it be? 195, 200, 205? We'll see. In terms of C.J. Stroud, that Georgia game put him in the discussion. We saw what he could do with his legs in that game against the Georgia Bulldogs. Will Levis, I contend, Greeny, had he been healthy all year and gotten some help from his O-line and his teammates there and played like he did in 2021, we wouldn't even have this discussion. Will Levis would be the number 1 pick guaranteed, but that didn't happen. Anthony Richardson would have been in his second year and made improvement over what he did in year 1. Anthony Richardson would have been number 1 overall, but we have 13 starts and we have inconsistent passing for a kid who's supremely talented. So there's questions with all 4. To a certain extent. I think QB1 is still to be determined. I think the consensus, though, from the people I talked to is Bryce Young, but it's not everybody, Greeny, because that size is a big concern. Can he withstand punishment through a long NFL season? Only played 2 years at Alabama, had the shoulder this year. That is definitely a concern. We have never, in the history of the draft, had a quarterback go this high at that size.
So what's fascinating to me is that sound you hear is all of the people we know in Chicago screaming in joy if it winds up going the way you describe it. If they can make not 1 but 2 trades, get all of whatever it is, the king's ransom they can gather for all of that, and still get one of the 2 big defensive stars in this draft, that feels like a dream scenario for the Bears, who sit right now at number 1, yes?
No question about it. If you can get Jalen Carter from Georgia, Greeny, who I think is the best player in this draft, it's not a good draft, but he's the number 1 guy on the board right now. Injured in September, came back healthy and was wreaking havoc late. He was the dominant figure in 2021 on that talent-laden Georgia Bulldog defense. Jalen Carter was the guy. The Bears need him, that interior defensive tackle. Defensive line in general, Greeny, big need for the Chicago Bears. They have their franchise quarterback in Justin Fields, so no question you keep Fields. You don't trade Justin Fields. Justin Fields is your guy. You move down twice, you get extra draft picks. You benefit from teams willing to move up and desperate to move up to get that quarterback in this draft, and you had 4, you're guaranteed either Will Anderson Jr. or Jalen Carter.
And one final thought, I want to circle it back to the quarterback that Mel mentioned at the very end of that conversation, because I'm sure a lot of football fans, well, you watch Florida play this year, obviously it had the 1 great performance against Utah, but Anthony Richardson will be one of the most fascinating projects and fascinating decisions that any NFL team will make, because the talent, the skill set is off the charts, but there are so many questions as well.
There are, and the 1 year as a starter, Greeny, I mean, 13 starts, there are a lot of guys would say, no, you cannot take a quarterback in the first round or that high in the first round with limited experience at the collegiate level. The talent is off the charts. He will be, when he becomes a starter, Greeny, he'll be one of the top 3 running quarterbacks in the NFL. The passing, he's got the howitzer, he's got the rocket arm, but accuracy, seeing the field is things he needs to work on. Another year at Florida would have benefited him, but hey, if you're going to be a top 10 pick, develop in the NFL, okay? So for Anthony Richardson, I've said boom or bust. The old cliche is what? Make your draft or break your heart. That's Anthony Richardson.
All right, there he is. He's the man who invented the draft. Mel Kiper Jr., as we count it down again, Mock Draft 2.0 available on ESPN.com as we speak. Mel, again, for those just joining us, the concern with Bryce Young is size. If he were of more standard size, there would be nothing to talk about with him. What are you hearing from teams and in your evaluation based upon his size?
Some they care about it. Some maybe don't as much, Greeny. It's going to be up to the individual teams. I think if you look at the Houston Texans, bottom line is, do they care? The Indianapolis Colts, do they care? They're at 4. 5'10.5". If you're 205, 200, I think you're fine, Greeny. If you're 194 or less, I put the bar at 195. I think the size is a huge factor, but it only takes that one team. He is an outlier. We've never seen that before. But as I say, what do the Houston Texans think at 2? What do the Indianapolis Colts think at 4? Will determine whether Bryce Young is a quarterback you trade up for with the Chicago Bears.
And just give all the fans something to be watchful for as we work our way through the combine and the rest of this process here, because this could be fluid. There's no question there isn't a consensus on who the number 1 quarterback in all of this is. What will it be determined by? What will make ultimately the decision as to which one of these guys goes first, second, and third?
Well, I think for Bryce Young, 195 or higher. Teams think 200 or higher, the one that I've spoken to, Greeny. I said it at 195. They say, well, you should have put it at 200. Word is he could be 205, working with that nutritionist. C.J. Stroud, that Georgia game, everybody goes back to, but it's one game, okay? It's one game. He didn't do that throughout his career up till that point, use his legs to beat a defense. Will Levis, had he been healthy all year and had more help from his supporting cast, he'd have been the number 1 guy. And then we talk about Anthony Richardson on talent. He's the guy. But he's raw in terms of his passing skills. He's developed more accuracy, see the field better. Will Levis, if you had to say, comes from an NFL system, played for two different coordinators, okay? Didn't get any help this year. He can spin it with the best of them. He can move, use his legs. He's big, strong, physically imposing. Will Levis is a guy, maybe the 3rd quarterback taken. We saw Justin Herbert, 3rd quarterback taken. Fields was the 4th quarterback taken. Josh Allen was the 3rd quarterback taken. These physically talented quarterbacks that dropped just a little bit have turned out to be really good, Greeny.
It's going to be a fascinating 2 months between now and the NFL draft. And again, Mel's Mock Point 2.0 is available on ESPN.com. Mel, outstanding as always. Thank you. So you take a look. Those are the numbers. And I mean, and sometimes numbers can lie, but in this case, they do not. This is a player who once upon a time we said had MVP caliber talent and potential, and had one season where he looked like it was headed in that direction, and then it's all just gone completely sideways. And so I want to just sort of start with the group here. Does this feel like the end of the road? Have we seen the last time Carson Wentz will be a starting quarterback in the NFL, Bart?
It's definitely a crossroad. Who would have thought, out of that draft that Jared Goff would be the one with the promising future after the Rams gave up on him? But Carson Wentz, not only did he, seem to lose his ability to make impactful plays, he lost the locker room in Philadelphia, so questions of him as a leader. And also just when Frank Reich gives up on you, he put his coaching career on the line for you. And, Carson Wentz wasn't able to answer the bell. Not being able to beat Jacksonville, it is really, big question. He's only 30 years old, but it may be time for Carson Wentz to really, truly sit and be humbled for a couple of years, be a backup, and see if he can recreate himself. But right now, it's not looking good, Greeny.
Tim, what do you think?
Yeah, I think in terms of, look, he's done as a starter, Greeny. I think the question ends up being, what's the burning desire inside of him? You have to consider it this way. He's made $130 million playing football so far. Is he going to go take a deal to be a backup with little to no guarantees to not even know if you're going to make the roster coming out of training camp and be somebody's backup? Not everybody has the stomach for that. Not everybody wants to pursue that, especially when they've kind of been rewarded for being a starter. So, look, I think not only is he done as a starter, I think there's going to be legitimate soul searching for Carson Wentz on whether or not he wants to continue playing football.
It's remarkable. It's very hard to disagree. I brought that up with Jeff Darlington as well. In an age where a lot of guys have made so much money by this time, they're playing because they want to more than they have to. And at this point, will he feel that way? Jeff, what is your sense of where this goes from here?
I feel like I'm piling on at this point, but I don't even know that he has the passion to be the starter. I mean, I remember standing on the sideline in Jacksonville covering the Colts-Jaguars game in a win-and-you're-in scenario when a quarterback in his situation where, I mean, basically it's all there for him to prove that he can still play in this league, that he can get the redemption that he's looking for. And I've never witnessed in my life a less inspiring moment from a quarterback on a sideline who looked like he truly didn't care. not one to try to read body language, but it was screaming at everyone watching him. So ever since that moment, I've never really thought that redemption was in the cards, let alone another team after Washington. I just don't see it.
It's remarkable. And look, I mean, it's kind of hard to believe that it has gone in this direction. We were talking about him maybe as an ascendant star in the National Football League, and it has been quite the fall. One way or the other, we will see. And there are quarterback questions that remain in Washington. Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.